What is going on, YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the fourth album by rapper Lil Wyte. Basically, this project is called The Bad Influence, and it came out in the summer of 2009. The thing about this particular product is just the fact that Lil Wyte was starting to become more low-key in the late 2000s as far as a pitch can happen. He had a pretty decent commercial breakout album with The One and Only from 2007 that outdid both Doubt Me Now from 2003 and Finally Famous from 2004. And all three of those albums were pretty excellent. I remember giving The One and Only like a 10 out of 10. I think I gave Finally Famous like a 9.5, 9.25 out of 10, something like that. I don't remember what I gave Doubt Me Now, but I think I relatively liked most of that particular product. But Lil Wyte usually gets like a couple hits off of his projects in terms of like the singles. He's pretty low key in terms of like commercial breakthrough as far as that kind of happens, but he has a lot of residential in this overall house party crunk type music. Even though crunk is not as much shown full blown on this particular product, there is a lot of 3-6 Mafia similar type tunes that works pretty extremely well, I'd have to say. So it's a dope enough concept. The one thing about this project I wasn't able to really locate as far as that particular kind of happens is the single and the promotion for this. I was kind of looking around on YouTube and Discogs and some of those type websites to see some of the singles that were released around this particular time, but I don't know if there was or if there were music videos for this in particular. It's just kind of the concept. Wikipedia doesn't really have that information as far as the singles that Lil Wyte put out. So it's kind of getting tougher to find in nowadays times, I'd have to suppose. So even if there were singles, I'm not really sure as to full blown what they were, but this is a classic album here. I would definitely have to say this is another stock hit for 3-6 Mafia, Hypnotized Minds, DJ Paul, Juicy J, Lil Wyte, and some of those type folks. I just would have to say pretty excellently produced. This is just a very murky and brooding type project, but the surprising thing about it is that there is a little bit of commercial breakthrough, and there are some moments that do kind of have some of those after hours dredge, where it's not just strictly just house party only type fare, but a lot of this is pretty housebound and just local type of fares as far as that pitch goes. There's not really like another follow up to Oxycontin. If you're coming to this project just fresh off of Oxycontin, if you're coming to this project fresh off of Oxycontin from Doubt Me Now, I'd have to say in particular, it's not really like a full blown kind of stock, this classic Lil Wyte hit in terms of like the commercial appeal that that particular song kind of had. But there's really not that many nightclub songs in here. But I would have to say there's a number of kind of local residential type, murky type hits on here. This is pretty excellently produced as Chris Autumn type music that just works extremely well for that relative haunting type fare. Just night strolls, getting some Popeyes, getting some KFC, getting some Taco Bell, some of those type pitches, just some good sparks of this, that relative appeal, this smoking swishers late at night, just the demon time after effects of this walking home or driving home pitches like that as far as that particular kind of happens. Some good appeal. This Nightbound project, this is like an early taste of like demon time type stuff as far as that pitch kind of went, just for 2000s type fare, I'd have to say. For the most part, there are some ones with some Traverse in mind, but it's just kind of the concept. A lot of this is more house party in mind, which I've noticed Lil Wyte's pretty good at that, at doing that in particular. It's just kind of concept. There is at least one song on here called I'm the Bad Influence, which is a pretty good relative cousin of like Oxycontin, I'd have to say, but for the most part, it's going to be more kind of local bound type stuff, just kind of more kicking it at the crib and places like that, just more residential bound with some of your pals as far as that kind of goes. But that's not a complaint because I do look after this. It is a classic album, just that concept of this kind of being more low key and pitches like that, but it works. So just understand that this is not as much like a stunt and kind of step out flash of a project, but I would have to say it's got some good stuff on here. So basically out of the 15 songs in this particular album, there's actually 14, not counting the outro, but out of the 14 songs in here, there's really only one song I didn't recommend in some fashion. That was just supply and demand. Basically, I just didn't appreciate the production fare of that type one. I was trying to be one that was pretty similar to like, it was kind of trying to be somewhat similar to some other shit I'd had to say, but just didn't pull off the vibes nearly as well as that particular kind of happened. It's not really so much that that's like a bad song, it's just kind of the bravado behind it. Just didn't really have the bravado behind the song, just didn't have the appeal like full blown like the rest of these songs on here. Just what I say, it was just kind of one that didn't strike me as wholesomely as like the rest of this project, which is basically everything else. So this album gets a 10 out of 10, so I'll just go ahead and recommend these songs on here. Basically, some other shit's a pretty highlighted one. Now, the thing about Wikipedia is just the fact that it says that Project Pat is on here like 3 or 4 times, but he really does not drop a verse on any of these songs. I'd have to say it was kind of a disappointment that he wasn't on here. Juicy J helps out with the chorus or two and some background vocals and some intros as far as that pitch kind of happens, and DJ Paul does like some intro type stuff. But for the most part, this is strictly Lil Wyte. No guests on here or anything like that. It would have been nice to have gotten a guest or two, something like that. Even Juicy J dropping like another verse. I don't know where Frazier Boy is. I'm surprised that Project Pat wasn't on here. There's some other folks that probably could have been on here that probably would have been pretty interesting. It felt like Lil Wyte had like a group of folks there. I do think there probably should have been some other rappers on here, but for what it is, it's pretty excellent. Just to say, it's not so much a complaint, just something to notice that it's just pretty much full blown Lil Wyte the whole way through with like some mild kind of touches of just like some 36 Mafia kind of aesthetic, I'd have to say. But basically, some other shit's a pretty highlighted one. This has a classic 2000s crunk 36 Mafia beat. It has same particular. It's like a good haunting appeal. This song particularly kind of has. This is just like a slurred kind of evening hours malaise, I'd have to say. So it's a pretty dope concept. Kind of get this. This got done with the work shifts and pitches like that. There are some ones on here relative to the fact it doesn't full blown embrace like the work shift as far as saying like, you know, work sucks, some of those type pitches, but it's just kind of the concept that once, you know, once work has been done for probably about 40 minutes, hour and a half, some pitches like that. This is just some good concepts to get ready to get cranked and cut loose as far as that particular word that kind of happens. Just the excitement that it just goes 0 to 60 and you just have to kind of it goes 0 to 60 and you vibe with it just because it's kick ass and it's wicked. And that's just kind of the concept. There's not really any interim type songs in here. I feel like the closest thing to like an interim song that's still, if you're still somewhat in like the work shift kind of mode, I feel like that's what it is. It's kind of a relative concept about that. But for the most part, this is pretty much done with work, ready to get tore up. And that's kind of the concept. This is definitely like a huge kind of addled product, I'd have to say, in particular. Pretty shrill concept. This is recreational type fare that's just off the meter. Definitely appreciate this particular concept. Just a blitz of an album, I'd have to say. Plenty of great songs to get tore up to in a lot of fashions. This is just a real blitzkrieg of a project here. There's just some mild moments like some work shift, just finishing up just this relative last type moments to kind of get just within that fashion. Just kind of, all right, you're done. Now let's go do something type altitude. And that's kind of the concept. But I guess to kind of talk about one of the ones that kind of feels like a relative kind of work shift and like a finishing up type sense, like I was describing, would be That's What It Is. This is like a late 2000s kind of crunk commercial gem, I'd have to say in particular. This one's pretty presentable and relatively starry-eyed tune for Step Out, I'd have to say in particular. It's just a good concept. Some of those type ones that like folks were doing, I mean, you have to keep in mind that Drake and folks like that, Drake and B.O.B., some of those type folks, New Boy, some of those type folks were around in 2009, around this time when this particular album came out. So it's just the concept. One of those starry-eyed type hustle tunes that would be like Empire State of Mind by Jay-Z, something like that. And obviously, like Lil Wyte is not doing like a Jay-Z type tune, but just the concept of the particular type vibes of just getting something that has like that relatively, just that kind of promo type tune that you would get in like 2009, just in circa 2009 type fare. There's been some folks that have done, I can't really think of those type songs at the moment that were kind of doing that mid 2009, late 2009, apart from like Empire State of Mind was just kind of the concept about it. But it's a relatively commercial type one, but it's just a 3-6 Mafia spin on that as far as that particular kind of happens. It's a real nice one to kind of get just the haunting type appeal, just within a relative kind of promo type sense, I'd have to say. So that's a nice one. It's about as commercial as this album's going to get, I'd have to say. So it's a dope concept. But Oxycontin's a pretty nice one. This like a brooding and kind of shrill, aghast autumn stroll music of a song, I'd have to say. It's like a good smoke a few music, I would definitely feel like, and this is just a basic kind of hangout hit. This one has Juicy J on here, which is a pretty good pitch. This is like a sequel to the Oxycontin from 2003. Now, obviously, Oxycontin from 2003 is the better one. It's the more affable type one, but this is a good kind of secondary follow-up to this one. Just another good re-up of that particular song just to get another blistering type hit. Great song to get tore up to pitches like that. Just pretty ghastly type one. George Bush is a pretty nice one as well. It's like a George Bush is like a blurry and kind of ghostly crisp autumn. George Bush is like a blurry and kind of ghostly crisp autumn haze, I would have to say in particular. It's like a residential bound kind of ho-hum day outings of a song, I'd have to say in particular. And this song just has like an everyday type feel. So it's just kind of the concept, just a relatively lackadaisical type one. It's in a haunting sense, I would have to say it's a haunting kind of lackadaisical, but it just works pretty well just for like some standard errand running and pitches like that. Just kind of affability of just getting some of that done, wrapping tasks up, some of that type stuff, just getting cell phone bills paid, some of those type pitches, I'd have to say it's good enough concept. There are some residential night stroll haunting type tunes on here, one of which is So-Called Homies, and this is the most popular song off this album according to Spotify. I'd have to say dope enough concept, but once again, I don't think folks really knew what the single was. I don't really feel like too many folks knew what the single was off this particular album, so it's kind of the concept. It's a relatively old, it's an older project nowadays, I'd have to say, so this is kind of the concept, but this is like a real talk song, I'd have to say in particular. It's like a haunting kind of Get Torch music, I would definitely feel like, and it goes well with Get Gone, I would have to say. This is just kind of some after hours fun. So it's a dope enough concept. Get this one. This is just one of those typical type ones that 3-6 Mafia, Project Pat, some of those type folks would do. Just kind of residential, smoke a few type records as far as that pitch kind of goes along with it. Just kind of some real talk type concepts to kind of get just for like some kind of dap, but just keeping your circle type pitches like that. Just the concept of just kicking back and just kind of, I do like the concept of getting some of these type moments just because a lot of this is just relatively social, but just kind of within the concept of just not as full blown kind of like the pizzazz of just like nightlife and weekend type life. I feel like this is kind of, in some cases, this album kind of feels like a more Wednesday, Thursday, Friday type fare, just smoking throughout the week and pitches like that, more so than Friday just got done with things as far as that pitch goes. I mean, there are those songs on here, but it's just not quite as like I'm gonna go out to the club tonight, get some drinks in my system, get blitzed, some of those type moments, and just go out to the dance club, some of those type moments, and just so this stuff you're probably not going to be listening to this with the same fashion of listening to folks like Pitbull or LMFAO or some of those type folks that, like typical weekend music that you would hear at like dance clubs and pitches like that, Cobra Starship, Lady Gaga, some of those type folks, Katy Perry, some of those type folks that I had to say. It's not to say like this isn't commercial enough, but it's just kind of the concept. A lot of this just has a more haunting aspect. But I do feel like has a relative kind of casual bite about it. This is definitely, I mean, Lil Wyte has always had that kind of casual appeal as far as that's kind of when I just look after being able to say that this does have the casual appeal, but it's just in a more localized type sense, more so than stepping out flash. But it's some good stuff. Another song that's pretty similar to So-Called Homies, like I was saying, is Get Gone. This is a nice one. It's like a glistening kind of night fair of a song, I'd have to say in particular. It's like a creeping kind of demon time hours I would feel about this song. Creeping kind of demon time hours highlight, I definitely feel like. This is just a smoke several kind of munchies type music, I'd have to say. So it's just the concept of just some standard type fare. Just kind of getting to a lot of these, just the relative pizzazz of just having some of these type moments, just being able to enjoy them. Definite good munchies type music. If you just feel like baking a cake, something like that, when you're blissed as hell, some of those type moments just don't burn down the house, I'd have to say. It was just some excellent concepts. Kind of get some of that just in particular, just getting some good lavish cooking done. Getting some good lavish cooking done, some pictures like that, just getting blitz, watching Jackass or watching a bunch of movies, some pictures like that, just enjoying the times in like a night centric type tone. I'm the Bad Influence is a real nice one. And this is kind of a standout of a song on here just because there's not many songs like it within this relative fashion. This is like a gleaming kind of nightclub bounce of a song, I'd have to say. It's like a nice step out pizzazz, I would definitely feel like. And this is just a social loud pack jive, I would have to say, pretty damn well effective in that particular sense. And this is just like a stock hit, I'd have to say. So it's just the concept. One of the few nightclub songs on here. I feel like, once again, most of the stuff is just kind of residential smoke, a few just backyard smokage type tunes, pitches like that, residential bound, but just kind of in the concept. Sometimes with your homies, sometimes not. Just Taco Bell type music. But I feel like I'm the Bad Influence definitely has some night type appeals. It's interesting that this is one of the few songs. I mean, the one and only from 2007 didn't have this problem. That did have some ghastliness about it. That was a pretty creepy and haunted type album, but it did have some more step out type appeal. I feel like there were just more single variety. It's just surprising that Lil Wyte didn't have any singles off this particular project or try to promote it that much more. It's just kind of a very low key type one. He was kind of in Tech Nine and Chris Calico territory around this time, which is surprising because he was almost one of the cats that was getting ready to blow up after Project Pat and 3-6 Mafia as far as that pitch kind of went. But it's just kind of just relatively localized type project, but it is quality, I'd have to say. So just don't pay attention if folks think that it's just too low key to fuck with, because it does have the gems on here. One Little Pill is a nice one. Definitely appreciate this song. It's like a drooping, kind of murky, stoned out kind of head trip of a song, I'd say in particular. It's like a pretty stellar house party hangout type drew of a song, I'd have to say. And it's like a horrific type hit. Horrific and like a horrorcore kind of just ghastly kind of sense, I'd say. Just really like the drooping kind of appeal of this one. So it has some good edginess towards it. This is kind of one that's a little bit more darker than what implied. Just the concept of Lil Wyte, a theme that Lil Wyte goes with on this particular project is just talking about being a bad influence and realizing that folks are gonna look to him in like certain fashions to kind of see what he's going to do in pitches like that, and him just saying that he is just going to do what he is going to do in that sort of pitches like that. I do almost miss some of that type of appeal, because I think the Lil Wyte from probably past 2020 or so probably would not have the same approach that he has nowadays. Not to say I have a problem with more recent Lil Wyte, but it's just kind of concept that he was just a little bit more brash around these particular times, which is an interesting concept, because this is really, I mean, this is a lengthy time ago, but it's not as lengthy as like he was back in 2003, 20 something years ago. So it's just kind of the concept that he was kind of on that same tip in 2009, 2010, I'd have to say, but definitely a pretty murky song. Maria is a pretty nice one as well. It's another smoke a few type song. It's like a brooding kind of night shift haze of a song. I had to say in particular, it's like a good in motion tune for task to wrap up. I would have to say in particular, great concept for that. Just another type one, pretty similar to like some other shit and leaning off that Europol, some of those type ones I'd have to say in particular. It's like a typical kind of 3-6 gem, I'd have to say, and this is a pretty ghastly type song. So like I was saying, this is just kind of one. This one's kind of vehicle bound, I'd have to say in particular, just kind of cruising, this kind of neighborhood cruising, just getting things taken care of, getting things laced up as far as that particular kind of happens. Just a little bit not quite as lackadaisical on this particular one, but it just kind of does it in like a haunting type sense. It's just kind of some autumn music, just stuff to listen to, paying bills, pitches like that in like September, October, November, just in a more creeping type sense if you just listen to gothic music throughout the year, I'd say. So it's a dope enough concept. Definite nice one. All Stops is a pretty nice one as well. It's like a thrilling kind of night traverse and gas station pickups music of a song, I'd have to say. In particular, dope concept for that. It's like some local fun and Taco Bell run type music, I'd have to say. Dope, pretty shrill type stuff, I'd have to say. And it's like some good kickback. Yeah, there are definitely songs on this particular album, like All Stops, I'd have to say. I would definitely say Oxycontin. I would definitely say Oxycontin, Maria, some of those type ones, So-Called Homie, Get Gone, some of those. I would definitely say Oxycontin, Maria, So-Called Homies, Get Gone, some of those type ones just have that same tittering type beat and just overall shrill type productions kind of get with a lot of these, just in particular. Just an excellent type concept kind of have just within that fashion. Leaning off that Europal's a real nice one. It's like a pounding kind of getting ready to step out type dredge of a song I'd have to say in particular. It's like a finishing up work shift type excitement, I'd have to say. Pretty nice one. I don't know if I talked about this song before, but I guess I'll talk about it again just within that fashion. I'm not sure if I did, but I'm thinking that this is one that I might have mentioned in like some of the other songs I mentioned, but this is a pretty nice one to kind of get here. But this particular song, leaning off that Europal, is definitely one to kind of get some excitement going in particular. I'd say this is another one just for like that end of type fare, just the concept of just going 0 to 60, just flip mode, just really get into that particular concept of just like, okay, it's time to get turned up, some pitches like that, time to go pick up a 12 pack, 30 pack of beer, some of those type pitches, get some smokage, get call the people up, some pitches like that, get some things started. Just an excellent type concept. Just within the reality of it, it's just a good concept just to be able to have some of these, just because this is definitely some pretty affable type music back in the day, and it still stands to reason that a lot of this continues to be even now. This is great music for summer, despite the fact that it's kind of haunted. This is some great type stuff just for residential bound. You're just walking to Popeye, something like that, just to get some stuff. Just 2 a.m. pitches, or maybe 8 o'clock p.m., 10 o'clock p.m. pitches like that. At 8 o'clock p.m., 10 o'clock p.m. pitches like that, I'd say it's just a dope enough concept. Kind of get some of these, just appreciate the times. I rep mine's a pretty nice one as well. It's like a ghostly kind of neighborhood romp music. I'd have particular definite good concept as far as that particular pitch kind of goes. It's like a typical kind of evening highlight, I'd have to say, for Popeyes and work relief. I'd have to say it's another type one just kind of get. This one goes well with leaning off that Europol, some other shit, some of those type ones. A little bit of Georgia Bush in there, some of those type pitches to kind of get in particular. I'd have to say just a relative good concept, kind of get some of these. I rep mine kind of relatively reminds me of like Jeezy's Recession album as far as that pitch kind of happens. It's a relatively leery type one that just works pretty well. I mean, the whole production fare of this particular album is just off the meter in terms of like just the absolute ghastliness. I mean, 3 6 Mafia are usually pretty excellent at producing. 3 6 Mafia continue to be pretty damn excellent with producing some of these albums. It's just too bad that they didn't do more productions later on. I mean, I think they did them about to like the mid late 2010s, but it's just in particular, they just aren't as commonly 3 6 Mafia beats, it seems like, in today's times. It's definitely the concept. I don't know if Lil Wyte has used more Juicy J, DJ Paul type beats in like his later albums from like the late 2010s forward, but it's just the concept. A lot of these were just classic after classic because they just had an endless well of beats that just continue to be wicked and kick ass. Just some of those type pitches kind of get this. Is an excellent concept. But yeah, just a lot of these just kind of have that particular appeal. And another one that was kind of on that work shift type 10, apart from another one that's pretty similar to I Rep Mine, would be That's What It Is. That's another one that kind of had some of that relative commercial appeal about it, just within the presentability towards it. So it's just some good concepts. Just being able to see a lot of these work shift type songs on here, just be able to just being able to ditch the work shift type mode set and pitches like that, and just switch to flip mode and get to getting crunk and some of those type fares, and just get some people called up and get ready to have some times. Just dope enough concepts. So the regular score gets a 10 out of 10. I think as a result, I think you can tell that the social score for me is going to get a 10 out of 10. Also, there's just so many blitz type ones on here. I feel like Lil Wyte does not full blown dislike the work shift life as far as that pitch kind of goes, but it's this kind of concept that you get some good moments just to be able to step out and have some crazy type times. Lil Wyte's a pretty crazy album. Lil Wyte's a pretty crazy party animal as far as that pitch kind of happens with it. Just a lot of good blitz type songs, even if there's not like a full blown kind of, I mean, there's smoking songs on here, but it's just kind of the concept that a lot of this is relatively chill and relatively mellow. I mean, it's haunting, it has the haunting type appeal of it, definitely some good hangout type music and some good music to feel once you're feeling that. But in terms of like something like the craziness of songs like I Show Will by Lil Wyte, or some of the ones, he was just a little bit crazier on the One and Only. I had to say that had a little bit more shrill type beats. This one definitely has some murkiness and just overall hauntingness, but this one's more haunting. Previous one was more shrill and more Dracula like. That's the One and Only. I feel like the crunk type edginess, there's not a lot of crunk on here, or party type songs like I Show Will and some of those type ones, and Acid 2004 off of Finally Famous, and there's just not an overall just like winner of like a complete standout that's just definitive of Lil Wyte's career type hit like Oxycontin from 2003. It's just, this album's still going to get a 10, but it's just kind of the constant, just some stuff to pay attention to. But this is definitely 10 out of 10 social, just because the sheer appeal of this. Like I said, there's not a ton of nightclub songs in here apart from like I'm the Bad Influence, I'd have to say, but does have some good house party just appeal for after hours and pitches like that, and just amidst like the ending moments of work shift. So that kind of happens to be a thing. In terms of the future, like Lil Wyte put out a couple albums in 2024. I think he put one out in April 2024 and he put one out in May of 2024. So that's the concept about it. He has a ton more projects I'm going to have to get to. I do want to get to his 2012 album. Some of those type pitches still doubt. It's definitely one that I remember from back in the day that I want to recover again, see what I think of it nowadays. Some pitches like that. There are some other ones like No Filter 2 with Jelly Rolls and pitches like that I want to get to. So there's definitely some more Lil Wyte. I would have to say there's plenty more to catch up to in pitches like that. But this is a classic album, kind of an overlooked project by Lil Wyte. I have to say nowadays, not one that's commonly talked about, but it's very murky and just overall wicked and kicks ass, and it's easy enough to recommend.